Okay, it being 6 p.m. on March 2nd, I'd like to call the planning board meeting to order, and I would like to advise everybody that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast.
So Paige, I know you did a stellar job with our feedback. Do you want to walk us through the changes to the warrant articles from our last discussion? I know I had left you with a couple of questions you were going to follow up on.
I'm just making sure Scott has the link. Let me get that to him. He's having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to resend it to him to make sure. Select all, copy. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so let's just walk through it from the beginning quickly. So the comments heard at the last meeting had to do with, pretty much to sum it up, we're biting off more than we probably could chew, and we hadn't really had a lot of time to vet it. And in light of that, no one wants to rush anything through. We want to, think this stuff through. So, but one of the issues we did land on possibly sticking with was, changing the definition of warehouse, with the primary goal of narrowing what warehouse definition is, that it's basically for storage and ultimate distribution, but it's not for sort of the higher volume warehouse uses that have evolved into the new economy, where it's like fulfillment centers and automated centers and just, fewer employees, a lot of equipment, and a lot of trucks being generated as they, some of them goes directly to the consumer. So we're trying to avoid that. I think we're looking for more of the traditional warehouse definition. So the first concern in doing that, we reorganized. Number one, you'll see that we now have it all kind of as one article relating to debts to warehouse. And we are not talking about the changing zoning districts that we had kind of brushed on. We're not doing any of that. So as you can see on this first page, the definition of warehouse is the same exact as it was last week. It's just that I broke it down, with the little I, double I, and triple I, to see if that helped it, be more digestible. Now, I will say I've gotten comments from Tracy, who had some concerns that 2 and 3 are pretty much the same but different. So when Barney gets back, we are going to ask him if it's possible to combine those 2 into one subsection rather than having almost a lot of the same words said twice. And Barney's pretty good at that. So I think that'd be something we could address there. So does anybody have any thoughts? I think Jeff was one who kind of had the bigger concern. And I get the sense that he might have been okay with this based on an email I got from him, but I didn't get a lot of feedback. So, but I didn't hear of any concerns. So does anybody else have any comments, questions, especially if we narrow it down a little bit?
I have none beyond what I've recommended in terms of trying to combine little I, and little I, little I.
So that's the definition. Then the second part of it that's at the bottom of the page has to do with the desire to get rid of truck terminal, general commodity, public warehouse. So what we'd be doing is first adding a new definition, warehouse, because we don't have a definition for warehouse today. We do have a definition for truck terminal, general commodity, public warehouse, all as one, but we don't have a warehouse. So we'd be creating a definition for warehouse, and then we'd be amending the use table to eliminate the truck terminal, truck terminal, general commodity, public warehouse use entirely, and then replacing it with warehouse. So then the new definition would apply to that new number 8. And we would not be changing the uses at all. Like it would still be special permit in all districts for that type of use.
So it's highway business, general industrial, light industrial, and S1, which is Route 1.
Correct.
Everything else is a no.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's the sum total of that article. That's pretty much how it goes. Create the definition, eliminate a use, replace a use.
Is there a definition for distribution somewhere else?
Is there a definition for what?
For distribution centers somewhere else?
No, I don't know.
Well, that would just be.
we can go back to it another time. Like we're not done. You know what I mean? There's a lot of tweaks, so we can tweak that. It would probably fall under D1, which is what warehouses and most of the uses up on Panis Road don't even fall under the definition of public commodity, trucking, blah, blah, blah. They fall under this very, very broad one that includes storage and whatnot, which we call D1. It's the zoning table D1. So distribution, if it falls under there today, would stay under there. Whereas warehouse since we have a more specific definition, that would prevail over a broad definition that makes sense to apply if there's nothing better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I do think, we'll probably want to tweak things as we move forward. We're learning and this is a new thing. And I don't know that we have it 100% right, but I think what we are doing, the goal here is to eliminate the truck terminal type use in the vague public warehouse and make a warehouse definition that the residents, at least a lot of the ones we heard from, and maybe some, people feel like based on Foxborough today. And it might get voted down. People might not support it at all, and that's understandable as well. So it'll be interesting to see because there is, some risk, obviously, with not risk, but there is some market impact to having a building, not allow as many uses, that use that was coming in front of us to Washington was extraordinarily broad because they wanted to make sure they could cast the widest net. So obviously, as we narrow down the definition, that would then narrow down the allowable uses and maybe the market. But, that's a decision for the voters, I think, of like, what do you want to see in your town and what are you willing to, how are you going to vote?
Yeah,
Okay.
in all honesty, I don't think that narrowing down the uses is detrimental. We've already got a substantial commercial base in this town, and there really isn't that many properties left. I think it's actually going to work in the benefit of the community to limit it. We won't have the potential of what we were just facing with for Washington to Washington.
So then moving on to in. I did get some feedback on this. Thank you. One of the comments is the first paragraph after the first numbered paragraph that says to see if the town will. Sorry, did someone have a question? No.
I was the one and I was the one that raised an issue with Paige on this one. The second part, the start use is allowed and not allowed. It is the most convoluted sentence in the English language I might have seen. So Paige, I think you were going to go to Barney to see if we could rewrite that so there's greater clarity.
I have an email written to Barney, but I wanted to wait and see if we had any more changes after tonight.
Of course.
Plus he's on vacation. And I think he's reading his emails. So I don't want to be part of that problem and send him emails when he's away. Yes, we'll look at whether that can be tweaked. So just for folks at home, this is a bylaw to look at allowing the use of in this Chestnut Basin Overlay District, which is over by the old state hospital, where Conrad's and the old state hospital medical offices are. All that area is part of CPOD. What we're doing here is amending it to allow the use of an in this area. And then we're also creating a definition of in. I know there's also been concerns about the length of stay, want to make sure that we don't end up with it becoming a long-term thing. So Barney, again, taking that back to the drawing board. I know Barney was still sort of thinking about the wording of the 30 consecutive days thing. So I think he'll, with a little prompting, we'll want to take a look at that again. So we did get a comment on that.
I mean,
make sure that's nice and tight.
I mean, ideally, I think it should be taken down 2 weeks. That would be my recommendation. I don't know how the others feel.
Yeah, no, I think 30 is way too long. Inns, when you think of an inn, you think of a long weekend or.
Exactly.
Okay. I'll pass that on. The only thing I could think of is if there is any rules around that. I don't know, like if there's state laws as to whether you can limit tenancy, but certainly I think everybody's intent here is to ensure that it doesn't become housing, does not become a long-term rental, does not come a place where people stay for any extended periods of time. So we'll take a harder look at that as well.
I think we have, I think we also have to take a look at how they could restrict it so there's not back-to-back terms of 30 days or 2 weeks or whatever. Because it's so easy to bastardize that law.
I agree, Very
Check out one day, check out one day and then come back again.
exactly.
Do you have any input on that? You're muted.
I can look into building code and get definitions on transient and see what they say and see if they have like a time limit, what transient and what is not transient. But yeah, I can help Paige with the feedback on that.
All right, thank you.
And then we have definitions, and this is why Scott's here. We have a definition of auto graveyard and junkyard that have become sort of the topics. No one seems to have any issues with setback or self-storage mini warehouse or tattoo parlor. But auto graveyard and junkyard are raising the concerns. So I don't know if you got the second, or the 400th version of that I sent out, but I know one had two and definitions, and Scott's chosen his favorite. I did update that, but I don't know if I ended up with the wrong one myself. So Scott, the one you chose for auto graveyard is the longer one, correct?
That is correct, because it gives you more of a defined use of that property. So it gives me more teeth to use as a zoning enforcement.
Is that the same reason for the longer junkyard one, Scott?
Correct. But if you look at the junkyard one too, it also addresses auto graveyard. So it kind of like lets me fall back on that auto graveyard. So it kind of like encompasses both of them.
Yep.
And like Paige said, I mean, these are just a work in progress. I'm sure there's going to be hiccups if it does go through the AG's office. It gets approved at town meeting and goes through the AG's office. But we'll have to deal with those hiccups when they come. But I need as much information or a substance so I can do my enforcement correctly.
Absolutely. I'm fine with them. I don't know about the rest of the board, but I think they look great.
If I remember correctly, the concern I think it was Jeff had last week was there was a number in there that was very black and white. What was it?
Yeah, I think it was 2.
Yeah, so it's really, so you see here, it's doesn't look like there's an actual number anymore. It's a little more discretionary or described somewhere else in another code. I don't know what the magic code that would be used for this. But I know Scott has his hands full with those determinations.
Well, and I think, rightly so, we should, look to Scott to guide us and what those definitions should be as the enforcement officer.
And I think Jeff mentioned something about that he liked the addition of the auto graveyard, that it was used for the sole purpose of, storage, collection, blah, blah, blah. So that was missing from the previous, I believe.
Yeah. I don't believe it was. I think it was indicated in the use table, but there was no definition on auto graveyard. So I had no basis to do an enforcement on it. So we need some clarity on that. And Paige and Barney came up with a great definition, I think. Again, it's a work in progress.
Can't take any credit for it. It's all Barney.
Okay, Barney. I tried.
Paige,
I think everyone's done a great job with this.
Yeah, it's a work in, we all kind of put our heads together and there's no mad science to just coming up with what makes sense for Foxborough. Moving on to the next one on page 3, we have limited site plan review. That's, as you know, the site plan for exempt uses like religious institutions or churches, daycares. Tracy did have a comment on that under number 4. She thought perhaps we could add item G at the end that would indicate that they needed to check with public safety. So I in the memo that I have ready to go to Barney for when he gets back, I do ask that question just because I wasn't 100% sure if the limitations of the state law would make that an extra onerous provision. And I know where Tracy got this from is we had such great success working with public safety for the Hindu temple. And so the good news is sometimes even when we don't require it, it makes sense for these applicants to consult anyway. But we will look into whether that's something we should raise up front so that folks know to do that.
And then Paige, just to clarify that number 4 is the process we're currently using, and this would just codify what we're doing.
Correct. Correct. And then the other stuff is more administrative, replacing the term town planner. And then in the S1, the number 6 there is that's basically to clean up something that right now the applicants, before they get a special permit in S1, have to go meet with the Board of Selectmen prior to the public hearing and get a comment. The Board of Selectmen has the right to comment. And we don't know where that harkens back to, probably a time when the selectmen had more involvement in applications like this. But this isn't, I don't think, something they're that interested in getting in the middle of. And so instead, we would have them coming to us so that it's basically a pre-development meeting, which is always wise because we can flag issues and let them know who to talk to and what to worry about. And so that's what we're recommending there. And then
just on number 6, what I suggested when I talked to Paige is a number of these articles say by deleting such section in its entirety. And Paige and I talked about, could we put this section that is being deleted in the warrant, or at least in the advisory committee's write-up, so people understand what's heading out and what's coming in.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
well, let's see, I'm not sure it can go in the warrant, but certainly with if the AdCom could do it, or we could always have a handout. I've always done that where you use strike
That'd be
through.
great.
Yeah.
And it shows it there, but it gets messy and complicated on the warrant.
That's fine. As long as it's provided so people are able to make an informed decision and understand what we're
What's
deleting.
changing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
that's a
perfect
great
sense.
idea. Yeah, for the
And AdCom reading it, I think is a better option as well.
And honestly,
Yeah, so I'll send it to them early on, once they get the articles, I'll make sure that whoever is where our liaison is, I'll make sure they have it with the strike throughs.
that'd be awesome.
Okay. And then the other stuff is just fixing the environmental impact statement, amending the sewer map to include the former Pratt School, and then the disposition of the Pratt School. I guess I should have the select board would have to vote on that as well. But so we'll see if they put it on the warrant because they might have a different opinion, but we'll see. And that's all I have. I don't know if anybody else, how do you all feel about moving forward with these articles? Do you have any concerns going forward? Should we sit on anything? Are we good to go? What do you think?
I feel good to go.
Gary?
Ron,
Yeah, let's go with it.
Ron, how you feeling?
Okay,
Okay. Does Tom vote on this? Because we don't have Kevin.
Not technically, but he always has a vote.
Yeah. So Tom, are you good with it?
Yeah, I'm fine. Looks good.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to recommend the inclusion of the proposed planning board warrant articles for spring annual town meeting, which will take place on May 8th, 2023, with some potential revisions based on discussions with Barney Overt, who is the chair of the zoning board.
I'll second that.
all in favor,
Yeah.
we'll do a roll call vote.
Tracy, yes.
Gary, yes.
Tom, yes.
Ron, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Paige, thank you for all the follow-up and condensing everything and taking our feedback from last time. Very
Oh,
appreciated.
and thank you all for your review. It was really helpful.
Well, Gabby scared me. I don't like
Sorry.
to disappoint Gabby. No, I just don't like to disappoint you. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
Tracy, I.
Gary, I.
Online.
Ron, I.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks so much for
Thank
coming out.
Good night.